Don't mind me. Doing it again. What? Yeah, he heard me. everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Jessica Clements, and I'm the Public Information Officer for the Idaho Falls Police Department. Today I am joined by Bryce Johnson, Chief of Police from the Idaho Falls Police Department, Captain Bill Squires, Captain of the Investigations Bureau, Lieutenant Joel Tisdale, also of the Investigations Bureau, Sergeant John Marley from the Investigations Bureau, Detective Sage Albright of the Investigations Bureau, Carol Dodge, who is the mother of Angie Dodge, Brent Dodge, the brother of Angie Dodge, and many members of the Dodge family in the room, and as well also Sergeant Josh Deedy. Today we are here to share developments in the homicide investigation of Angie Dodge. Our first speaker will be Chief Johnson of the Idaho Falls Police Department. Following Chief Johnson's statement, we will allow time for media questions directed to Chief Johnson or Captain Squires. We ask that you save your questions for that time. At the conclusion of those questions for the Idaho Falls Police Department, CC Moore from Parabon Labs will have a brief statement and will be prepared to answer a few questions as well. Finally, Brent Dodge, Angie's brother, will share a statement on behalf of the family. At that time, Chief Bryce Johnson will conclude, and I will let you know when we are done at that point. Chief Johnson.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. We're happy to be here today. So, in June 1996, Angie Dodge was 18 years old and was living in an apartment not far from here. On June 13th, 1996, about 11 a.m., Angie was found murdered in her apartment. This investigation has been ongoing in one form or another since that day. Today, we're here to announce that we have arrested Brian Leigh Dripps for the murder and rape of Angie Dodge. Dripps is 53 years old and has been residing most recently in Caldwell, Idaho. His DNA matches the DNA sample left at the scene of the crime, and he has also confessed to the crime in an interview of both rape and murder. Before we get into the story of how we got here today, I just want to talk about a few people. This is a 23-year case, and I will be unable to cover every nuance and every detail and every different branch of this investigation that occurred over the past 23 years. We're going to talk about the last year and a half and really focus on the last 6 months. And there's some people and some things that got us here. First and foremost is Carol Dodge. Today is about Angie. We've got a picture of Angie. And Carol, for 23 years, every day, every second of every day, she's been looking out for her daughter. This case begins and ends with Carol. Brent Dodge and the whole Dodge family. CC Moore, who I believe is here, if I got CC there somewhere. So CC's going to talk a little bit later, and I'm going to get this wrong. She's a forensic genealogist, some real scientific name. I will get it right later, but she's going to be instrumental. It's kind of rare for someone like CC to be at a press conference like this. I think what you'll find as I do this, there's a special bond between, again, Carol Dodge and CC. And she's probably here because of Carol. Carol is the beginning and end of this case. Parabon Nano Labs was instrumental in helping us. Sorensen Forensics. The Idaho State Police, I'll talk about them a little bit later, but they provided so much assistance. The Caldwell Police Department, I'll talk about them a little bit later. Again, they just provided great assistance. The Twin Falls Police Department, the Twin Falls Sheriff's Office, the Idaho State Lab, I'll talk about them a little later. I think we have Cindy Hall here from the State Lab. There's Cindy right there. Again, it's a little bit unusual from someone from the State Lab in Boise to come to a press conference like this. Reference Carol Dodge. You'll see a constant theme. Everyone associated with this case had a passion we all wanted to do what's right through the whole thing, but Carol inspired us all to try harder and to do better. Francine Bordeaux, did I get that one right? I hope. From West Valley Police, West Jordan. Sorry, I was in Salt Lake. I got them from the West Jordan Police Department. Again, it's very unusual to have someone from the West Jordan Police Department come here for a press conference and make the same reference. Carol Dodge. Carol's got her hands on this from beginning to end. Mayor Rebecca Casper, I'll talk about kind of how the meeting went with her. My team, I'm incredibly proud of. Captain Bill Squires, Lieutenant Joel Tisdale, Sergeant John Marley, Detective Sage Albright, Sergeant Josh Deedy, and then the entire team of the Idaho Falls Police Department who put this thing together with the assistance of everyone else. Now that I've mentioned anyone, I'm going to go back to Carol because it begins and ends with her. Yesterday, as soon as we had him in custody, I got to meet with Carol and Brent for just a few minutes. I met with her late last night, and I gave her just a sample of what we were going to do today. I think the only thing I told her last night was that we had matched the DNA, and that was as far as we got last night. We regathered today at about noon, Carol and Brent, and we thought it would be a couple of people. There were quite a few people there, the Dodge family, people that are close to Carol, and we spent an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, just talking with the family and explaining to them everything that we had and where we were at. It was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. At the time, Sergeant Dede was Detective Josh Dede, and our Mayor Casper, had asked me for a briefing on all the cold cases that we had in Idaho Falls. So I asked the different detectives if they could give us a briefing on that. And in the briefing that then Detective Dede did, I've never forgotten it, he had, his first slide of that briefing was a big picture of Angie. And he told me, look, you're just getting into this. This has been going on for a couple of decades. There are all sorts of side stories here, but you need to remember, he's telling me, you need to remember this is all about Angie Dodge and finding what happened to Angie Dodge and finding who was responsible for that. And so Angie, again, is the reason why we're here today. And I'm going to ask that as we move through this conference in the days ahead that we all keep that in mind. This is about Angie. The history of the case is long. I can't count the number of hours spent on the case by so many people. I think we submitted over 100 samples to the state lab for DNA testing. Negative, 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 negative. Frustration. At some point we thought we would never get here, I think, but it was a long walk. As you'll soon hear, the DNA testing and technology that ultimately led us to this point have not been available for very long. As the technology is developed, IFPD has sought each advancement in DNA testing. We've tried them all, and we're excited to be among the first few agencies in the nation to utilize this advancement in technology. We partnered with CC a while back in Parabon Labs for what's called genetic genealogy, and CC's here, and she'll talk a little bit later. CC was able to give us kind of a family tree. She was able to say through the genealogy research and the DNA that we had that it belongs to this family tree. And so we knew who some great-grandparents were, and the tree branched out from there. At that point, you look at who was 4 years old at the time of the murder, and you can safely assume the 4-year-old was in our suspects. So we were able to whittle that down utilizing those techniques, and CC and her team did a lot of that as well. We ended up with about 6 folks that were in that family tree that we thought we could go out and investigate. It would fit the profile. Some of those folks were in Idaho. Some of them were in Twin Falls. And so some time ago we sent a team of detectives, Captain Squires and his team. They went to Twin Falls. The Twin Falls Police Department and the Twin Falls Sheriff's Office were just incredibly helpful in doing that. What this entails is surreptitiously acquiring people's DNA as they discard it. So the detectives were down there. They were conducting surveillance on the people that were in this genealogical tree. It goes on for hours and hours and gets into days and days. Eventually, one of the people that we were trying to do was chewing some tobacco, pulled the tobacco out of his mouth, threw it on the ground. He left. A few minutes later, a bunch of detectives who were hiding behind a tree ran out, started scooping up the tobacco into a evidence container. And we were able to acquire some DNA that way, and we were pretty excited about how that was going, and there was a lot of optimism. We sent those samples to a Sorensen lab, and it took a little bit to get them tested and get it done. Those results were sent to CC, and we were all very hopeful. And it came back negative, no, and it came back that the people we were looking at were even further away from this genealogical tree we were looking at. It went from excitement and we think we're going to do this to we're back to we don't have any idea and we don't know what to do. We were confident in the science, though. The question became of, well, is there an unknown person? Is there a person that isn't listed on the genealogy anywhere that is part of this family tree that's not recorded as a family tree. And that's kind of where it was at. I'm going to try to get the story as close as I can, but when Cece talks, she will correct any errors I have. So Cece and her team started researching that as well, looking for who else it could be. They were able to find an obituary of a grandmother that listed our arrested person's mother, and that there was a child that mother had that was our suspect, our arrested person. The date of birth, the mom had been married to the male that was in the family tree, and they had gotten divorced. And the child had been born post-divorce, but was born before the divorce, but the child had taken the name of the new family, and that's why it was never listed in that genealogical tree. But once they found the obituary that listed the age and the date and could connect that date was pre-divorce, it became pretty clear that this might be the person we're looking at. So we had another meeting. By we, I mean Captain Squires and his folks had another meeting with Cece. She gave him the name that of Dripps that she believed it was. She was relatively confident that she had the right person in her research. We took that and started looking ourselves, and we were able to corroborate that that was really a good chance of the person we were looking at. We had information that attached him to the area at the time of the murder. So now we had a new name and a new person to go look at. He was living in Caldwell. So we again rallied the detective team, Captain Squires, Lieutenant Tisdale, Sergeant Marley, Detective Sage Albright, and a whole team of detectives. They went down to Caldwell. The Caldwell Police Department was just so incredibly helpful. Caldwell assisted us by finding where this person lived, making sure we knew where he was at, doing a little pre-work for us. They then opened up their entire police department to us. The IFPD detective team went down there, and they spent hours and hours and hours. It was upwards of 20, 23, 24 hours of just surveillance in the car, waiting to see if they could get something that might have a DNA sample. Over some time, they were following them, and a cigarette went out the window, and we thought, oh, we can grab this cigarette, that's going to work. A cigarette in the middle of the street isn't as easy to recover as you might think, especially on a busy street where there's lots of cars going by. So we had to let him drive through before they went out to get it. By the time the detectives got out, they were dodging cars playing that Frogger game, and the cigarette butt we couldn't distinguish from the 50 other cigarette butts that were in the road. And so they got a little dejected, but they persevered on. After about 20 hours of surveillance after that, and they redeployed a little bit, another cigarette butt went out the window. One of the detectives was right there to mark that and to make sure we had the right one. They got that cigarette butt. Once they got that, we took that one to the Idaho State Lab. And this was on Friday, so it was getting a little late on Friday. I don't know if anyone knows, government closes down Friday afternoon, and it's closed over the weekend. The Idaho State Lab, let me back up just a little bit. The Idaho State Police, both in Twin Falls and in Caldwell, all the way along, the Idaho State Police were right with us, assisting us with everything, and they've just done so much for us. So we got the cigarette butt, we got it to the state lab. They stayed open Friday to let us know that there was a sufficient sample on the cigarette to do the testing. We didn't have to go find another item. They remained open all weekend long, and I believe it was Saturday they made the phone call. We have a DNA match. We've got the person that left the DNA scene of the murder. That put us into hyper gear. Now we knew who our person was. We had a really good idea where our person was. Start putting plans in place. Plan a second operation in Caldwell. And so Tuesday, another team of Idaho Falls detectives, again, Captain Squires, Lieutenant Tisdale, Sergeant Marley, Detective Albright, and an entire team of just some great people. They went back down to Caldwell, again assisted by the Caldwell Police Department. They opened their entire department to us, their interview rooms, everything they had was put at our disposal. The Idaho State Police came out. They had multiple detectives with us. They also rolled out their crime scene trailers and everything they had. We knew where he was at. We knew we wanted to contact him. There was a pretty good plan put in place. The detectives that had watched it had patterned him. They knew he left at about the same time every day, went to a convenience store, and then returned home. So we were going to try to contact him at that convenience store. As sometimes happens, our plans don't quite work out. Unfortunately, he didn't cooperate, didn't go to the convenience store. So we ended up following around the valley a little bit. Eventually he stopped, got out of his car, and he was contacted by the Idaho Falls police detectives. He agreed to talk to the detectives. We helped him get back to his house. He had a dog. He was worried about the dog, so we got the dog back to his house, and he went to the Caldwell Police Department where the detectives conducted the interview, and that's where the confession was obtained. So that's how we got from where we were about a year and a half ago to where we are today with the arrest of Brian Leigh Dripps for the murder and rape of Angie Dodge. And with that, I would open it up to any questions you might have.
Chief, can you tell us a little bit more about the confession? Did he confess right away? Did you have to ask several questions? How many hours was the confession?
This is Captain Bill Squires. He's going to help me out with some of these questions because he was just right there through the whole thing.
Good afternoon. It was, no, yes, he did lie initially. It was a lengthy interview, probably 5.5 hours-ish, something like that.
He denied it and said he had nothing to do with it, and then eventually just flat out confessed, or?
There's a little more to it than that, but yes. I mean, yeah, we listen, to the versions of the story, and if something doesn't make sense, then we keep coming back to it, and ultimately, then the truth has a way of finding, or a way to come out. So that's what sometimes on something like that that's been repressed for so long, just sometimes that truth isn't really easily divulged. So.
Let me just mention this. So Sergeant John Marley, who's right over there, and Detective Sage Albright, we pulled out our top guns for this. They are incredible interviewers, and they did just an incredible interview. Bill just they're gonna teach classes about this in the years to come about what Sergeant Marley and Detective Albright did in this. It was an incredible interview, and they did a great job.
Was Drip living in Idaho Falls?
At the time of the homicide, yes, he was right across the street.
Across the street from
Yeah,
Angie Dodge?
457 or 459 I. 459.
Had he been here long? Was he a long-time resident of Idaho Falls at that point?
Yeah, he'd not necessarily at that location, but lived in the Idaho Falls area for some time before then.
And did he know Angie, his neighbor?
Just as an acquaintance. Not, they weren't friends, just knew of her.
Did he have any kind of record?
At the time, I don't think, we've got a record in between now and then for a couple of misdemeanor charges and arrests, but I don't think there had been anything on his record at the time.
So you kind of get the impression this guy that's lived in Idaho Falls for a long time just goes wacko bananas and murders Angie?
Some of this we still have to keep to ourselves for the purposes of the court case, but so we've got the rest of the story pretty well in hand, but it's not, there's not any other really overlying conspiracy or anything like that involved that we could, at this point we're not aware of. There's still some corroborating evidence and some interviews that we still have to do to finalize this. So we're not kind of at the point of the investigation to let everything out of the bag related to it. So we're keeping the potential for something else to come up there, but there's nothing like that I could disclose now. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Do you know if he's been following the case over the years? If he's, followed all the specials and news?
He said that he'd watched some of them. He had seen some of those news shows over the years, yes.
Will you guys be sending out a picture of him?
Yes.
Photo?
Yes.
Does he look anything like the composite that we got?
We have some, the period photos related to how that phenotype was done. Like currently, no. I mean, he doesn't look like that. He's got the same characteristics as far as brown hair, brown eyes, the same type of traits that way. That's kind of how the phenotype was designed, though. It wasn't meant to look like an actual photo of that individual. It's just the percentages of those type of character traits that you would have. So, but yeah, all those were consistent.
Our next speaker will be Cece Moore. We're going to add you to the family. Cece Moore, and she will be able to speak to those questions very well.
Thank you.
Captain, can you tell us what he said happened the day that Angie died? His version of events?
I don't know if I can disclose that or not, to be honest with you. I think some of this where this is so early, I want you to understand, we've just barely arrested this man last night. We've just come back here. We're now compiling our paperwork and our affidavits. I don't want to disclose that yet, and the prosecutors will probably kick me in the shin. I think we've got to make sure that our case, because the most importantly, we've gone through all of this, like the chief alluded to, 23 years of work. I don't want to do something stupidly at a press conference going to cost us the case, so I hope you'll forgive me for a lot of those details that way.
He confessed to the murder and rape of Angie. We'll
Is
leave it at
Dripps
that.
town? Do we have him incarcerated here?
He's in Canyon County. He's in the Canyon County Jail right now, and he'll be transported to Bonneville shortly.
Any idea on arraignments or court dates or anything like that yet?
We understand his first court date, his first appearance was today there in Canyon County, and then he will be transported here, and I think the further arraignments and stuff will happen here in Bonneville, but I don't know when.
We don't have dates.
Yeah, I don't know yet.
Was he questioned years ago as being one of the neighbors when this happened?
There was a field contact with him. Yeah, there was a canvassing interview with him back then, just days following the homicide. So, yeah, we did have his name in a file on a report like that.
Are you confident he was by himself, solo, accomplices?
So let me answer that this way. There is a whole lot of different stories to tell in this case, 23 years, and there's a lot of stories to be told. Our mission, our purpose is to find the truth, and that's what we are absolutely focused on. We're focused on the evidence and what the evidence says occurred and what the truth is. Whether that helps the case or hurts the case, our obligation is to find the truth. There will be a time to tell a story of whether someone else was involved, because that's an important story and it's going to get told. We don't have enough information right now today to tell that story, but I would imagine in the weeks coming we'll be able to reconvene and tell that story as well. Right now we're really focused on finding the truth. We are very confident with the information that we've been able to get with this break in the case and what we've done over the last couple of days, that truth will come out, and we're very confident it will come out very shortly.
Good work.
Thank you.
Did anybody feel a need on the part of the police department to maybe apologize to Christopher? I recognize it was another generation of officers, but at this point, does Christopher tap in an apology or reparation or something?
That would be a question for a couple weeks from now. So what we're here today for is Angie, to talk about Angie, to talk about Carol, to talk about what's happened. Chris Tapp is another very important part of this case that deserves its day in the sunlight, and we will do that. That day is not today. That day will probably be in a couple of weeks, and we'll do that, whatever is right, in a couple of weeks. We need a little bit more time to dot I's and cross T's. I'm not prepared to say one way or the other today, but that will come. Today is about Angie. It's about Angie's mom, Carol. It's about the Dodge family, and it's about what we hope brings hopefully a little bit of closure to them, and that's what we're focused on today. Those questions will come later.
Jonathan, your question?
I was just about to ask a similar question.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions from the media folks at this time? Okay. Cece, welcome you to the podium.
Good afternoon. This is a story of, excuse me, this is a story of perseverance, of mostly Carol Dodge, but also of the Idaho Falls Police Department. They never gave up. Of my team at Paragon, when we received a sample that was extremely degraded. Genetic genealogy had never been done in a suspect case with such a degraded DNA sample, so it was quite a challenge. And there were many, many, many others who have stuck with this case all these years. And I think we really owe our thanks to everyone, to Carol, to the Idaho Falls Police Department. I certainly wouldn't be standing here if it was not for them. I'm incredibly honored that we were given the opportunity at Parabon to work on this case, to be trusted with such an important case. And what we learned from this case is going to go on, and it's going to inform other cases. So Angie's given us something here. It is going to be felt in waves that go far beyond just this one case. What we've learned from working with this DNA in this case will be applied to many, many other law enforcement cases going forward. As the chief explained, it was at times exhilarating, at times disappointing. We were able to compare that DNA to a wonderful website called GEDmatch, and we owe thanks to the owners of GEDmatch, Curtis Rogers and John Olson, for allowing law enforcement to use it for these purposes, against a lot of criticism for doing so. But we care very much about bringing answers and resolution to families and making our society a safer place. We've been able to do that this is our 56th case this year at Parabon using genetic genealogy to identify unknown suspects and victims. So they deserve our thanks, and all the people that have allowed their DNA to be used for this purpose. It was certainly not the original purpose when people uploaded to GEDmatch, but those that have supported us and wanted to help bring answers, they deserve our thanks as well. So a lot of people get credit in this case. What we're looking for are common ancestors. So when we upload that data, we get a list of people that share significant amounts of DNA with the unknown suspect or unknown victim, but they're not close matches. These are usually distant cousins. So we are looking for common ancestors, patterns, overlaps between the family trees of the people sharing DNA with the unknown suspect. And in this case, we were fortunate to find 3 genetic networks, is what I call them. 3 different groups of people sharing DNA with the suspect that had common ancestors in their trees. And they all converged at one couple. So we knew that the suspect had to be descended from that couple. But he didn't appear in the paper records and the traditional research. He didn't appear in obituaries. And so we originally had it narrowed down to about 6 men, but it turned out there was a 7th, and that was Brian Dripps. So it took perseverance to find him, to find that he even existed, and then identify him. And then, of course, our wonderful, wonderful officers and investigators took that across the finish line. So I want to thank Carol, and I want to thank the Idaho Falls Police Department for allowing us this opportunity to really demonstrate the power of investigative genetic genealogy and what we can bring to society. Does anyone have any questions? Yes?
You talked about it was a very degraded DNA sample. So just to be clear, it was the sebum sample from 23 years ago and the cigarette butt that matched?
I think it'd be better if
Sure.
Captain Squires.
The degraded sample she's talking about is that the quality of that original sample taken from the crime scene back then in 1996.
We have the best science then. I mean,
Correct.
We have the science of the day 23 years ago.
Right.
So that was degraded. And what was it matched to for grip?
Yeah, cigarette butt.
Cigarette butt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how far we've come.
Yeah, yeah.
In 23 years.
Right, but what was difficult was we were missing some of those genetic markers. Instead of using just a handful of genetic markers, which is what forensic genetics has traditionally done, we're looking at hundreds of thousands of genetic markers. And that's compared to the million or so people in GEDmatch, their hundreds of thousands of genetic markers. And we were missing quite a few of those. And I wasn't sure we could do this because I'd always worked with living people that could spit in a tube, mail it in, right? And so having degraded samples is a brand new thing for genetic genealogy. It's not something that we're used to working with. There's no guidelines for it. There's no science on what that's going to look like in our analysis. So it took a lot of theorizing, and Dr. Ellen Graytack at Parabon was also really key because she's the one who worked with that degraded DNA and got it into a format that was workable for genetic genealogy analysis. So there was a lot of people involved in finally getting this there. Now, I thought we might have to go back and get a new sample, and then we finally found him right before we were about to do that. And so this will inform and teach us for many more cases in the future.
What was your response when you saw that it matched?
Well, I'll say I was about as confident as I could have been once we found Brian that he would be the one. I, of course, have to wait because it's really just a lead. It's a scientific tip that we're providing to the officers. But based on all of the many months of work I had done on the family tree, and then finding him in Idaho Falls in 1996, it seemed like it had to be pretty solid. So I'll say I was relieved it was a match, but I wasn't surprised.
Cece, can I make a comment real
Yes,
quick?
please.
I just wanted to clarify one thing that we were just talking about. The genealogical testing or analysis that Cece does is a different comparison than when we got that cigarette butt and we compare that with the state lab against that original sample. She's looking at this at far more traits and trying to look at the familial line on her side, and she came to the same person. But then once we get the cigarette butt to corroborate her analysis, to verify that it is that person, we send that to the state lab. They compare it against that the CODIS profile that's in the criminal database, and shows that's either a match or it's not. So that shows that it's a complete 100% match on that side. But I just want to kind of make the case that it's a corroborating different set of testing that gets us to that same place. Brian Dripps is the suspect.
And where's your lab, Cece?
Parabon is in Reston, Virginia. I work out of Southern California.
Oh, okay.
But that's a really important point. The arrest is not based on genetic genealogy. It's a completely separate process. It's very independent. It's provided as a lead. It's a lead generator. It's a tip. And then they have to go out and confirm or refute our theory. And by doing, the way they do that is collecting that abandoned DNA like they did and comparing that to the traditional forensic profile. That's the one that's court admissible. What I'm doing is just a lead. Yes. Can't say it enough times, just a lead. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good work.
Thank you.
Genetic genealogy used in this format is very new, and it is something that we know a lot of people have questions about. I have some documents that are provided by Parabon for members of the media to leave with today. Please connect with me afterwards, and I'll send you home with that. For members of the public, we'll make those available on our website so you guys can look at those as well. Thank you. Brian?
Well, on behalf of the Dodge family, we express our gratitude and appreciation to you for the prayers and the faith and the hope and to help my mother soldier on. And this is a great day for our family. I wanted to take you back 23 years ago. I lived in southeast Idaho, further south than we are here. And I had my daughter at the time. I was up here on some business, and I called my grandmother, who lived on First Street at the time, and I said, "Would you like to go to lunch today?" And she said, "Brent, we can't go to lunch today. Something terrible has happened. You need to go to the police department." And I was brought in to show some pictures and identify my sister, Angie. And my mom was in the adjacent room, and I went in and told her, I said, "Yeah, she's gone, Mom. She is gone." And that has haunted us for a long time. My mother wrote in her journal, she said, "The journey has been long. Many lessons have been learned. Much heartache and pain has been unbearable at times. Years of the unknown drove me to insanity at times." And many of you might have experienced that. And because we saw her at her most vulnerable moments. And of which I hope none of us are in that situation again. And she continued by saying, people have come and people have went, just like the seasons. But they've all been for a purpose. And for that, we express gratitude for this day. I would just note, after my sister's death, we were here at the police department, and Pam Millhouse, is she here, Pam? She's, anyway, she said she gathered my daughter up and gave her a stuffed animal, and I was able to take care of some things there for the family, and Pam took care of my daughter Heidi, who was 6 at the time, and after that, my daughter said, Dad, did you lock the doors? Are we safe tonight? And we're safe tonight. The bad guy is behind bars. And so much appreciate that. And with that, we express appreciation to the chief. You're the mayor? Good hire. Enough said. A couple of weeks ago, I met with Bill. My mom and I met with Bill, and I just looked at Bill, and I had this overwhelming sense of gratitude for him because he represented the Idaho Falls Police Department. And I said to him, I said, you got this. You got this. You're strong enough. You can do this. And you did. And for that, we express gratitude. I wrote down a couple of other names, and I won't go through all of them because there are so many over 23 years, but I said to my mom, what are a couple of words to describe Josh Deedy? And she said, determination and goodness. I said, her good friend and confidant, Angel O'Brien, I said, what would you say to her? And she said, I would say that she is a true angel and a trusted confidant. I said, what would you say about Francine Bardot? And she said, she offered encouragement and she was my life coach. And there are many others, but I would just say, what would you say about Cece Moore, Mom? And she said, we wouldn't be here without Cece. And bless you for that. And as I've ran into a couple of people as time has went by, and they've said they've watched a couple of shows and so forth, and they've said, your mom is so strong, your mom is so strong, and she really is. The determination of a mother, when you mess with Mother Bear, you're going to get swatted. And she will go to the nth degree to protect her cubs, or make restitution, or bring to justice what needed to be brought. And so I salute all of you women, including my mom today, for your courage and your hope and your faith. And then my sister. Gosh, what a wonderful, bright young woman. And that I never had the opportunity to become an uncle because that was taken from us. But we love her, we appreciate her, we appreciate this day. I hope I'm not too presumptuous, but I wanted to just mention one other thing. As I've thought about this, I looked at a couple of statistics. There's 200,000 unsolved murders in the United States. Unsolved. And they're people like us, their family. You know, they have families. They live in pain and they suffer. And so I had this idea that what would it be like if we could crowdfund some additional technology and and we could have a source of funds that we could offer to the C.C. Moores of the world who could do some additional research and process more DNAs and those kinds of things. And so on Angie Dodge's website, I've set up a GoFundMe page, and that's where I've given my $5. It's 5 for Hope is what the website's called. So go to angiedodge.com, and underneath one of the tabs is a GoFundMe page. And if you've been a victim, or you have a family member, or you know of somebody and you felt that pain, we promise and commit that all of those funds will go to either research, and we'll use C.C. Moore as our advisor, and we'll allocate those monies where they need to be spent. And with that, thank you, and that's all I have to say.
What an overwhelming day. And I can't even express how hard this journey has been. And the hundreds of people that's been affected by one person's choice to take my daughter's life. Not only did he take her life, he took a piece out of all of our lives. It affected so many people around the world. Our family's been extremely blessed to have the people in our lives, the media, that has kept Angie's case out there and kept it alive. And I've been very blessed. And my Heavenly Father has truly blessed our family, that He's put so many people into our path to keep us going, because it's a hard journey. And Brent and I were talking last night about the rabbit holes. I said, you no sooner go down one rabbit hole, think you got it, and you come up and you go, well, that was the wrong one. It's just, wow. So there's lots of people I could thank. I could stand here all day and name. But just thank you to each and every one of you guys for being there, putting up with my craziness. Because I've been crazy, still am. But I'm just really grateful for all of your support. And to the current detectives, to the past detectives, I noticed that Officer Hoffman and Marvin Craner standing back there, all of you guys, everybody played a part in this. And I remember Jim Hoffman saying one day, we're going to look back on this maybe one day and say, how'd we miss that one? And today, how did we miss it? Well, you know, we had to go through all of the learning processes, and all the technologies had to come about because it was really in God's hands. He orchestrated the whole thing. It just took us 23 years to get here. But he led us all the way, and I want to thank all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Carol. Just to wrap up, as you heard, this is a 23-year journey that took so many different pieces to fall into place to where we got today. Just on a personal note, I am just so incredibly proud of the people I get to work with. This is the absolute cutting edge of law enforcement. There's no book we can go to look at for this. And for little Idaho Falls to have people of the caliber of Captain Bill Squires, Lieutenant Joel Tisdale, Sergeant John Marley, and Detective Sage Albright to be able to do what they did along with the rest of the team. It's just an honor to be with them. And Cece, what she was able to do is just an incredible honor. We started with, this is about Angie, and it's Carol. When I met Carol, she put her arm around me and told me she loved me. It doesn't happen very often. You gotta get away from me. She tells people she's crazy. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? She put her arm around me and loved me. There's something about Carol Dodge that makes people want to do their best for her. And so this case starts, this case ends with Carol Dodge, and we're so happy for you and your family. And if you get a chance to come up and hug Carol, that's what it's all about. Thank you for being here today. We really appreciate it. We celebrated. I got to be honest. We celebrated. Took 2 hours. You guys take 2 hours? It was about 2 hours of cool. Look at us. We did great. And then this particular group of detectives said, "What's the next case? We got to keep going. Our work never ends." Darwin Vest is still out there. If anyone has any information on Darwin Vest or that investigation, please come forward. Jed Hall is still missing. There's all the information out about his car. If you're out and about, please look for him. What I can guarantee you is these detectives will hunt to the end of the earth to find out what happened to those people. So please come forward and help us out to find justice for all those other people. Thank you for being here.
On behalf of the Idaho Falls Police Department, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I understand there will be many questions in the coming days, and we look forward to working with our media folks and members of the public to answer your questions and to make as much information available to you as is possible. Thank you again all for coming, and at this time that concludes our conference. Thank you.
Are you sending?
I will send out.
I know. Just check it. We got it or not. I don't know how we got it. And any chance they want to do a newsmakers tour? Whoever. Chief, bring in the other detectives, bring in the team. You can ask them later. I know it's soon, but it's very timely. Yeah, I'll shoot an email too, just to make the official request.
Driving me crazy. So when we got those results, we put everyone else out. Yeah, so I pulled in my best teammate. I did this all by myself till that point. And I'm like, well, I gotta find somebody to help. Yeah. Good questions. I think there's lots of areas. There are many.
They take care of you.
Yeah. A couple weeks in May, we have a lot more. So, I'm going to try to go up to her and ask her some questions. You got my mic? Check, 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 check. Sorry, I want to stay out of it.
She tentatively says yes to whatever.
You guys going all back together?
What
a day.
What a day. What a journey.
Do you have anything you want to say, Carol?
I am just overwhelmed. My daughter, she pushed me all the way. You know, she did that. She's a strong woman.
Did you ever think to stay with her?
You know, until a month ago when I just sat meditating saying, I can't do this anymore, Angie. I've gone as far as I could go, and I just felt her so much there saying, you're almost there, Mom. It just, things just, the last 3 weeks, it's just been...
We'll let you get more hugs. Thank you, Carol.